Okay, my friends, we're back with another interview. Von Walker interviewing my Lakota friend, Canupa, and he's going to bring on some other guests as well. We're getting ready to really dig into these issues going on out there in Lakota country with the government, IRS agents, trying to press them to illegally pay taxes, threatening them about reading treaties in jail, and that's an in-your-face, blatant disrespect of the treaty laws right there. I mean, just disregarding everything. We're going to talk about some people out there on the reservation who's actually tribal members, half-breed tribal members, who are misusing funds while you have elderly people out there freezing in the snow and starving in poor conditions on the reservation, mismanagement of money. So we're going to get into a lot of that and why is this important to the rest of the country, what's happening out there with the Lakota family. Well, Canupa and his guests are going to let you know why everybody should be interested in this, because it's a reflection on the whole nation, and we're going to tie it all in. So, yeah, Von Walker here, Talking Stick Radio. Also, you can view a lot of my information on www.therealtalkreport.net. I have something interesting that I just posted tonight, and I'll go over that as we're ending the call. So, Canupa, come on, man, and let's get into this information. Talk to me about what's going on with the IRS threatening you guys, man, and talking about reading the treaty in prison.
Well, first of all, this is Canupa Gluha Money with the Strongheart Warrior Society of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation here in South Dakota. I'd like to take this time to really, kind of elaborate on a lot of these issues that are being at stake. First of all, every time when Native people or any person of color starts rebelling to the system of its unhealthy predicaments of how the bureaucracy serves the purpose of how America deems to uphold, law and order and different type of constitutional entities, you will see that a majority of these type of issues that are at stake are not really exceptional to the minds of people in the general population, meaning you as American citizens. Now, here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, a lot of our people are vesting their time and energy on treaty obligations and many other issues that pertain to the form of tribal government that our people never consented to. When I mean they never consented to, means that they never agreed upon that. The Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 was illegally forced upon my people by the hands of the Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Interior Department and the federal government itself to neutralize the chiefs. So implementing a lot of these colonial laws that do not meet the requirements of our said nation status, this is the problem that our people are contesting with. Now, over the past few months and during the time when the election came to its, standstill, there was a letter that was brought out on October 25th, or actually October 22nd, 2014, and it was addressed to all OST candidates that were running for tribal office. And it says, to all OST candidates, this is a wake-up call from the Ushika Oyate that live on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And it is addressed to all of the political candidates running for the said offices. There is a law called the RICO Act. It is a federal law that provides for extended criminal penalties and civil cause of action for acts performed as part of an ongoing criminal conspiracy or a criminal organization conducting bad conduct within the systematic of governmental affairs. So as I'm reading this, I constantly really want to focus to that mentality every time when elections come about. Now, remember, over the course of history, the Native people have been trying to get away from how the Americans are deeming their changes, their policies and procedures by implementing this type of target of life to neutralize people that never understood the words of English. And so now you got a majority of people that do know the English value system, and at the same time keeping our own traditional language intact. And so what I read to you is actually a letter that was sent to the tribal candidates that were running for office. And so a lot of these families were utilizing this type of criminal, corrupted activity by implementing their families to go out and attack, other people that understood what was going on. And so there was a young man that brought this to light. And so, when this came about, also there was a young lady that was involved with the OST Council, and her mother was part of this. Now, this is the records that people bring out, okay? And it specifically says it right there. So the mother of this young lady, Julia Two Eagles, was, in a direct contact with her mother, who sabotaged the whole presidency for this year's election. And so our people are still, biasly in tone to what's really going to be the outcome. And so in December is when the newly elected people that took office, that got elected, they're going to take their, step forward. So there's still time to hold these people accountable. But we must keep in mind that there was so many people that were running for this provisional government at the hands of, the federal government's way of implementing the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. When taxpayers' money is dispersed to said reservations, I don't care which nation it's from, when it's dispersed, this money is supposed to go into these areas that would serve the poor conditions of what happens here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And unfortunately, our people have to fill out applications, okay, the same way you would do it outside the reservation. Anytime you want to seek assistance or get help, you got to fill out this application to give all the understandings to the society that oversees this money in order for them to meet this requirement to assist you. To me, any application that you fill out in America, that's a communist form of a manifesto. Okay? That's what they do. That's what America's done. And so when people meet these criteria, they're supposed to receive this money. But unfortunately, due to this election, Mr. Jeff Whalen and his brother brought this out very, blatantly, and it shows just how the tribal government utilized taxpayers' money for the LEAP program, better known as the Energy Assistance Program, to protect their drug and alcohol activities that are, continuing to go on here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And that $4.1 million that was supposed to go to the energy program that would have benefited us for the past, few days, that since the storm came in, there was no type of energy assistance to go out there and help our people. The money that you people got from these people that were running for office, that's actually your energy assistance. That's the money they took from there and paid you to vote for them. This is a most heinous assault on the reservation boundary sorrels of the same type of divide and conquer tactic where it allowed the full-blood people not to enter any type of agreement with the said offices that they ran for. And so when you look at that diagram, all of these guys that are in here, I know every one of them. And it's sad that because this diagram came out this way, we're not seeing the big picture. America's not seeing what these guys are doing. But yet you want to try to come at people. The same laws that America deems people to go by is the same way a lot of states implement that criteria. Nowhere in any said law does it state that people of color, I don't care if they're Indian, black, Hispanic, Asian, even white, are supposed to pay child support and all these unhealthy predicaments that put people in jail America is the most highest, incarceration country rated in the whole globe. They're the only ones that continue to use that type of capital and corporal punishment amongst people trying to struggle and survive. If you turn the TV on and you go to C-SPAN or CNN and you watch all these political, scholars talking and these senators, they're all talking how America is so beautiful and honest and there's no lying in their paperwork and in their game. Well, the real fact is, if people don't wake up and see what's really happening, almost every state here in America are creating and mobilizing police states. Back in the days in the 60s and 70s when the late Richard Nixon was in power, during the Watergate scandal, you will see exactly that all the people that he had on his cabinet of employment, from Alderman, Colson, Dean, Agnew, Mitchell, these were all people that went to prison, got out, did the same dang thing that America always repeats itself to, value and valor corruption. And even though this stuff was going on, America says it's good and it's okay. You have a lot of unhealthy predicaments. You have white folks killing their own children, severely taking their bodies apart, hiding them in plastic bags, but yet their families will come to aid them. Knowing the fact that these family members that took the life of the said little child, you can see it, watch TV, you just watch exactly how evil the people are. They will go through any extreme to protect their own. But when it comes to people of color, we do not get protected. We can't even mobilize to protect ourselves. And here we are facing the white man again with all these paramilitary forces that he implements through these police states. Now remember, when this Constitution Shredded Act was implemented by Cheney and Bush back then, it was to deprive you of those rights that you have to exercise. And so the reality of all this shit does not exist in this reality we live in. So, just look at it. Every now and again, the circle will promote its own attention. One day they'll knock off a native brother. Tomorrow it might be a Hispanic brother. And then after that, they'll hit an African brother. And after that, they'll go to an Asian brother. And they'll recycle that whole circle, and then they'll come back to the Caucasian person. And they'll implement that little understanding. Just to show you folks that we have become assets to the rich. First and foremost, we're assets to the rich. This is why law enforcement get away with murder. Families get away with murder. Now, if we start taking advantage of ourselves and killing us, amongst ourselves, what happens? They put us in jail right away. And we're never given that opportunity to have a trial and get, released on bond or, with our own. Where can we go, okay? Because of all these criteria that are happening. There's no place you can go because America does this. They strip you of those value systems. So here we are facing that. And now that when that whole cycle comes back around, they look for these little regards to attack our poor people. Now remember, all these things that are going on in this country, the poor people did not create that. It's you taxpayers and all you elites, you Bilderbergs, you Zionists, you Illuminatis, you're all the same. And you shadow governments, you people that are underneath, the whole concept of New World Order, you're the ones that create this problem, so you implement that on top of poor people, and you want to blame them. And so when senators use a certain parentheses of certain individuals that cry to them and talk to them, they turn around, well, why would you do it? They want to blame their own president for all the faults that are going on, that he supports that type of, unhealthy predicaments in his life. And so I turn it back over to you, brother.
You mentioned quite a few key points in there. One that I'm going to hit on right now, you mentioned something about the New World Order. What I want to chime in, what I want to focus on in this interview is genocide. I want to get your opinion on this, Canupa. what's happening out there on the reservation? Would you consider that a form of genocide if people are being starved to death and people being left to the cold and don't have the whatever they need to take care of themselves to protect themselves from the weather, from the elements? Don't you think that's a form of genocide?
Oh, yes, it is. It is an example of genocide. Now, remember, that diagram that came out that has these tribal officials that are running for office, 4.1 million can help people save themselves. Now, remember, America, people freeze to death at -7 below. And above, they freeze to death at 20 below or 20 above. It doesn't matter. This type of heinous genocide is still in operation. Now, the Genocide Act 101-16 has specific language in that stability of law. Now, when you do the math to understand this, there are certain positions and, constitutions and practices that give credence to that type of valor of law. And it was a Raphael, his name is right off the tip of my tongue. He's a foreigner that made that law going into effect within the United Nations. Now, when you blow the whole continent wide open into exposing this type of, and remember, folks, this is not a great obstacle of an illusion. Genocide is how you knock off people no matter what the condition is. I don't care if it's through commodities, the W.A.R program, or any type of welfare assistance, and any type of mentality that belongs to the Caucasian race. This is the power of how genocidal obstacles continue to, breach its own contract to eliminate people that stand up to corruption. Now, this is the problem that we continue to face. When there's a majority of people out there that talk about genocide, and they never see the whole course of it and how it, rebels back to that same circle in life that gives us the ability to serve the rights of what is implemented for our survival. Our survival. And so when we're given this, this pretext of this unhealthy predicament in our life, the American government has always, and I repeat, has always never supported that type of involvement. Now remember, Barack Obama, the president of this American government, accepted this whole complaint that was, transmogrified from the old one. There were certain laws and language in the old, act of, Constitution on the human rights, spectrum, that it was oversaw by the elites in, the United Nations, the category of that, mentality. And so here's our people being driven into the corner again and being denied those type of, predicaments of our said value system where we can serve that right principle system to gain, a foothold in the direction where we're moving to implement nation status. Now, over the years, genocidal issues were forced upon people in different countries, and they were imprisoned for it. They were shot to death or they were hung, and this kind of stuff still goes on here in America. But who's to challenge them? If you ever watch that documentary called Red Cry, you will see our people say, who's going to stand up to the American system for the native people? No, you don't have to stand up to them. You stand up for yourself. And if you don't take that type of understanding very seriously, then white America will wipe it off for you. And that's the godforsaken truth. This is why we would never move ahead. We're not talking about genocide. We're not talking about the destruction of how the law enforcement destroys people. We're not talking about how many lives are being, put to death and how they're mobilizing all these, newly enforced plastic coffins that are set in different states. This country is on a verge of doing something, chaotic, ladies and gentlemen, and they're coming, and they're doing it, and they're mobilizing in every city and town, and they're getting ready. This is why these construction companies are creating different roads that go into the neighborhoods of the poor people. Watch it. Pay attention to this, what's happening out there. And you will see it'll be the easiest way for the military and law enforcement to go right into those poor neighborhoods and start knocking our people off. And that's how they're going to declare martial law, by supporting the New World Order. So do I agree that genocide still exists? You're damn right. It's still alive, especially here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Back to you.
I hear what you're saying, Canupa, and for the listening audience, just in case you're not catching on to some of what he's saying, Agenda 21 is a program set in place. They use nice words like sustainable environment to as a way to keep the planet from becoming overpopulated. So they have an agenda to kill millions of people, lots of people. Now, the first thing the non-conscious person will say is, nah, not my government can't be capable of doing something like that. Well, they are. There's a lot of information that has been declassified on how the United States government has experimented on their own people. So the government, and now when we talk about Agenda 21, we talk about sustainable environment and the murder of millions of people and these coffins down in Georgia. We're not just talking about the United States government. This is a world government, one world order. This is everybody working in unison. So this is what Canupa is talking about here. And we see these things taking place by what's going on right in our backyard, in our country, and what's happening out there in Pine Ridge. Canupa, let me ask you this question here. Why do you think the Lakota are so targeted? Why do you think you guys are having such a hard time and trying to get things done, trying to get the monies dispersed the way they're supposed to be? It seems like you're being targeted by the system.
Well, first of all, the reason why the Lakota people in general, subjugated to this type of colonial behavior, is the fact that this reality is going back into the reflection of what we have done on 1876, when we took the American flag away from them on the field of battle. But the Lakotas did not do that by themselves. They did it with their neighboring brothers, the Arapaho Nation and the Cheyenne Nation. And both of these nations stood true to their identity of what they believed in by implementing this type of policy and change. I have something in an understanding in that in this whole class of what I'm talking about. The reality of what we're saying today, okay, the genocidal conscripts of the other ones that happened in many false fights that people said that, the reason why we annihilated this tribe or destroyed that tribe was because, they killed a lot of our people or they stole cattle or something. That's all propaganda. In reality, that's bullshit history. The reason for that, when they annihilated people. Now, when is people of color really going to see something here and act on this valor? When you go back to the country's, illustration of how the white man first arrived here in 1492, Native people from the eastern shorelines to the western shorelines to the North Pole and to the South Pole lived in this paradise naturally with the laws that were given to them by nature and the great mystery and the four directions of life that blow upon your face every day, day in and day out. The natural energy force of that law gives you the characteristics that what the brother just mentioned was very extraordinary to the point of our reality. And so when we get into that, okay, I want people to understand that because of our great victory back in, at the Greasy Grass and the Little Bighorn back in them days, we're still being persecuted for that by small implementations of this government's bureaucracy. Now, every sickness that's occurring within the reservation boundaries is epidemic at the hands of the federal government. I'm getting sick and tired of my people, use your word carefully. You can't insult and bullshit. Them people insulted us all their lives. They abused us. They chastised us. Look what they did to the African people. They brought them over here as a workforce, and they beat them beyond extinction, so now they don't have a value system. They don't represent themselves as traditional-minded people, and once and for all, they took their language and identity away from them. They had tribal kinship with their native homeland in Africa that gave them names that lived off the land that they were part of. And the white man did that to them. But remember, the white man that entered this country are all ex-cons. They're prisoners. So this is why these people that oppressed us, they would never go home and oppress their own, because that's what happens in those barbaric countries. I don't give a shit if it's Germany, Kosovo, France, Europe, England, any type of people that did not protect the well-being of their own society and citizens. They're at fault. All them countries are barbaric. This is what they do. They destroy people. And they don't care who they are. They'll kill innocent babies. This is the mentality. And that nature is still alive. And so, even the white race will say, it's impossible that you guys, man, can't stand up to the system. Where are you going to get your military? Shit, look what our people did in Greasy Grass, the Little Bighorn, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Lakota. They stood up to this military fence, that had nothing but automatic weapons and, the cannons and so forth, with bows and arrows, tomahawks, and, flint knives and bow knives, and we still got it on with them. And it was a great victory for us. So that American flag belongs to us. And every time you see it in a city or a town, county, wherever you're from, remember, folks, this country is still under occupation when that flag is waving high. It's not because, hey, it's the land of the free. Man, I'm just sick and tired of these people talking about when they turned around and destroyed treaty making. Now, when we get into a summary of this understanding, I'm going to let my brother give us these questions that we need to answer, and I'll do my best to answer them appropriately. Back to you, brother.
Okay, I heard you mention you was talking about how the Lakota took the flag. I'm gonna pair you up. I'm gonna match you up with another timeline, something else that happened in history over here on the East Coast. There was a war back in 1715 to 1717 called the Yamasee War, and then this was King Philip. I don't know if you're familiar with him out of Massachusetts. This is what the Europeans named him, King Philip. His name was really Metacommet. One of the natives up there, they renamed him King Philip. It was a bloody war up that way. The Yamasee War of 1715 to 1717 is said to be even more bloodier than that. Defeated the Europeans. And the only way the Europeans got any type of the way they was to rebound and come back, they recruited neighboring natives to help them defeat the Yamasee natives. And then out of the Yamasee War was born the Seminole Wars. Well, the Yamasee Seminoles never, ever, ever signed a treaty. And the Yamasee Seminoles claim to this day we are unconquered. Signed the treaty unconquered. They have that in common with the Lakota who captured the flag. And the Lakota and the Yamasee Seminoles are the two most persecuted tribes in the country, in my opinion, from what I see. I mean, we see what's going on out there in Lakota land. But what a lot of people, you may not have been aware of what was going on over here with the Yamasis, with the Seminoles, with Leroy Osceola, and the persecution that these guys are going through over here. I want to let you know, both of these great warrior nations have the same thing in common. Let me ask you this right here, Canupa. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
I want to ask you this right here. I seen you talking one time about being a warrior. Can you give me a brief breakdown on what a warrior is?
Yes, the warrior. Okay, the warrior is a French term, okay, which a lot of people, take into, note today in, that type of pronunciation of trying to relate to something that they're not. In reality, in the Lakota's point of view, I'm known as what they call a chlete. And then there's also the Akichita, which, gave homage to the American flag. The chlete came before the Akichita. And so these are two truthful terms that still exist in our culture. But a definition of the chlete, which we'll just use as a summary to outline this, as a warrior, you got him on the far left side. Then you got the American soldier on the far right. And in between the far right, there's what you call this so-called wannabe guy that fits into, distinctive unhealthy predicaments in society because of the gang pronunciation and so forth. Then you got the thug way over here. You got these guys that cannot find a way to, blend in with family values and whatnot, so they got to go this way. So all of them have to prove to their people or their groups and whatnot what they can do and what they can't do. But every time they kill the wrong thing. They kill themselves or they kill their own people. And they're doing it just to try to fit into a circle of life. That's the thug way over here. Now, when you come over next door to the thug, you go to this wannabe guy, which is a gang guy, where in modern times like Al Capone and all these guys that do that, there's another one. These gangs were turning around, were killing people that were trying to maintain their own businesses, that did not want to sell alcohol or drugs or whatever the situation was. So those people start knocking off business owners. Then you come back further left to that and you go to the American soldier. This man is told to kill in the name of a falsified freedom that he doesn't have. And so every country that these soldiers invade, what do? They bomb and kill nothing but poor people. Well, let's get back to the warrior guy. And now, remember, folks, I'm not using this term to be disrespectful. The chlete, which is better known to this in the Lakota culture, he has a whole list of responsibilities to get down to where he needs to stop life, to protect his nation and his people before he can finally kill. That's where I've been in that whole concept of that. I went to prison over this shit for standing up for what I believe in. And this is what I'm saying. So I know the concepts of what a warrior is, a soldier, a wannabe, and the thug. And there's many others. Every nation has that criteria. The real people have an ethnic identity to who that chlete is, and as modern people call it a warrior, it's right there. If you really look up the term warrior, and it's a French term, it talks about how they are. They're barbaric. They destroy everybody, even their own kind. While warriors back in ancient time were never, they never did that. We had a mutual ground with our people of the East. And what my brother just explained, I read books and knew about some of the people back in the days when I was out there in the Plymouth plantations and whatnot. And so I knew about what they did to Matriarchal and Nethercombe and all them, the Wampanoag Indian people and many other generations that are out there that once lived in that paradise. And so you could see, if you question this to America, where are their real warriors? They're not going to tell you where their real warriors are. Oh, they call them heroes. The American soldier is a hero. The police officer is a hero. The FBI agents are heroes. Okay, and the security guards are heroes. The firemen are heroes. But what about the people in general that still live this chaotic behavior and still try to rise and protect their own people? How come you can't call us the real heroes? Oh, because they never lived in this type of life. They've been living in that comfort, so that's what they fight and protect. Remember, that guitar player from down in Texas was sabotaging a lot of people's right to understand, what freedom was. And that's that guitarist Ted Nugent. That man, remember, he had to write a song about one of our most, spiritual beings, the white buffalo. The white buffalo is so significant to the Lakota that man had to write a song about it. So somewhere in his, corrupted mind of trying to think that, hey, he's better than everybody, he still had the verge to write about something that he could never own. Back to you, little brother.
Wow. Something else I'd like for you to talk about is matrilineal, the systems of the matriarch versus what we're living under today. I think what we have, from my understanding, Canupa, is when the Europeans came here, they witnessed a matrilineal society here, and they based their whole system off of that. You wanna get into that a little bit? I know Russell Means was talking about matriarch. I want you to break that down too.
Yes, I love to do this part, and to make a long story short, I helped the late Russell Means understand that value system with that. Some people will say, oh, he's lying, my dad came out or whatnot. No, me and the late Russell Means worked together tremendously to help our reservation here in Pine Ridge. Matter of fact, I went to jail with that guy numerous times. So no one out there can ever contest this issue that I'm saying, because I'm still Russell Means' personal bodyguard. Even after he left me, he passed away. Even in death, I still got the paperwork that he signed and dated for me to protect him. And we worked very close together. And after, the reality set in because of how America didn't want to really see two strong, leaders in Indian country stand side by side, it caused a dilemma between me and the late Russell Means. Unfortunately, I've always kept innocent of that, and he knew exactly what I'm saying. The matriarchal system, okay, when you look at how the Eurocentric behavior amongst modern man dehumanizes women, the matriarchal system never gave women the capability to wear pants. Why? Because they had a garment. There was a dress. They honored that. And so over the course of history, when modern man start creating inventions, he start utilizing his behavior to affect his woman and his children. And this is how he used that same patrilineal behavior, that patriarchal, mentality, to debreach and debauch his said wife and children and turn them into sex appeals. Now look at them. Every race is adapting to that culture. And young kids from the age capacity of 6 years old clear up to 19. We're talking to little girls. They dress so skimpy. Man, on the other hand, civilized man, when he sees these kids, the first thing his eyes go to is the buttocks of the said child. And white men love that when they see their kids walk by with that type of appealing, dress code. Man, that's inhuman. That's unhealthy. That is the most heinous assault on mankind to ever adapt to that type of colonial policy and practice. And they say it's good. This is the modern dress code. Well, let's go back into ancient history and look at some of the customs that are still alive in this globe. If you go to Kenya, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, because I've been to those countries, you will see that my African brothers and sisters out there still wear that undergarment. And they coached themselves because they had a purity, they had a respect, they had a love for themselves, and they did not discard their body. Well, the same with indigenous people. indigenous people here in Turtle Island still honor that dress code. But nowadays it's being replaced. A lot of these grandmothers and young women will not keep that dress on. They take it off and they put all these unhealthy undergarments on. And so this is how they are starting to blend into that. And nowadays as the circle turns, all other nationalities are falling into that. When I was in Brazil, I seen all my Mexica people over there still in the dress. And then when they come into our country, now they take that dress off and put undergarments and pants on. That's unhealthy. They lost the respect for themselves. But this is how America says that's okay. They want you to be disrespectful to you. How? How in the hell can modern man convey with tradition when modern man don't even have a pure understanding of who he is? Think about that. That's where the moment of silence comes in. Now, the Lakota Nation, on the other hand, nowadays that we have a majority of small amounts of people still wearing dress, you will see that dress code that our people once had lost them to reconnect with that traditional person that they are. They lost it now. And so now they run to this modern conveniences. I don't care if this offends anybody in life, but I'll prove my point tonight. The matriarchal system that is still alive. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 people out there that still have their dresses on, that never took on this patriarchal system's form of living. They're the only 3 people that are still out there that still have their dresses on. Now, I bet you 10 to 1, the listening audience cannot define them. They don't even know who they are. But I do, as a Lakota man, because I reconnect myself with my spiritual self, with my people. And that's all one has to do. If you understand your own spirituality, then you can start understanding where your independence and freedom is, and that's within yourself, and that's where the beginning and that belief system comes back, and you start your journey. Today, nobody does that. No one. I don't care if this offends anybody, but it's the truth. When I and the late Russell Means used to talk about these issues, we went to the core of the problem, and the core of the problem was this government known as America. Back to you, little brother.
Canupa, you mentioned something earlier about keeping the traditional language intact. The last thing I want to tackle here is the language. You know, the matriarch system. It was very important for us to be able to communicate in our language so we could tell and pass down our stories, so we can keep that alive. So what did they do? They took it from us. They took it from a lot of us. There's a lot of people here. If you're not an Anglo-Saxon, your native tongue shouldn't be English. But no one knows what their language is. A lot of people don't. I know you do. A lot of people don't. A chief told me, he says, a person who does not know their language is not truly free. And I want you to talk about, and I know you mentioned about the half-breed not being fluent in the Lakota language. So I want you to talk about the significance of knowing your language.
You know, that is a very, very strong point in reality. We have a saying in our language. They say, "Wola kota tililo o techige." Now, I'm better was he, "Wola kota tile chanteni talk kehetse ichachis ni hunter." Shicha walakinte. Na eta ho oyate glena. Hena hispal kilena isha onipakte na nisha ni hispanics. Meaning that, in modern, our language is hard to describe in English. So you got to find words that will kind of give it a meaning where it's identical, because our language was never written. It was passed down by the word of mouth. Now, what a chief might have told you is very accurate and true. But there's something I will give you as a true message to answer to that. The language is always going to be here. It's never going to go away. until our people start believing in themselves. They have to believe in themselves. And that language is in the wilderness. It's in the trees. It's amongst the animals, because the animals are the ones that still keep our language. They have it. Go out there and talk to them. You'll find it. And listen to the waters. It's all there. But our people have been so codependent with this Eurocentric behavior at this, civilized man's bipolar disorder that he's inflicting upon our people. We are forgetting our own value system with our own code of honor. And so, if I say this in Lakota, it's a real strong, a reality in our direction where we're going. Mitaki leake Canupa Gluha money, Miecha, leha hempiki wahiutake naha, okanchula ogna wagalake, mila huska kawitoye. Natona hukenal, Nahuyab oyaki hip, wopila tanka et chichapi. As let daku wa keki he yechetu. Honey mila huska kile, mini ogna leches e hiupi na makoche, ankata leches eftala hinajib na ha, oyate mitropi hina waka he ha. Ha toksa kile na, suta abalezab na ha waka na, mila huska kile na trochi shichap. As trokel ushika hinajib. Lo chimp, keep you on nature. Now let's halak ese hina in okaske tanka ata yuskapi encha lecha hipi. Ho, oyate oki kopi hina wine tanka na ichupi no oichakap. Taku gas wichakup, taku wotok the gene isen wichakup. O you can isam lena mila shicha na ha, taku hina kochi ankata left dala he ha, hina waka. Na okie hena tagni he okie was yo bonko kipshin. Hena makhoche ti uchi tropico hena echa ichachi na hena yake. As mila haska kilena nazula ke lila ata lila kujin hoeta woyuk chakile ipachiab na hoeta hoyate okie tropi wichaka sotam. Hoeta wana ata le on paike isam kankiki ake wanjito pa he hinajikil waka mitakepi ake mila hanska kilena lechese e chukte na ojula ni la khota bhanta wala khota kile ya chukte na khokata ke hechuse imanite wa kankile thoughts na chanteni khope yanke duene hechuse ilispo kisni to ha tumata na tiota lechuse wala ke hanta. And I chibbles and Oeta and the Wallacot and Wakakile Sutai Kichakte. Mila Husta, Taku Hena topic in a Hariapo. Hena Isha, Hena you happy. Now Hena was still like a hunter. Nietzsche Shita Wallakingte. Now I take Lena Tala, let's use a Makankata, Tehia Nazi begin. Hena was still challenge this name. Hena Hedges a lock in Nahti. Nahe, one there, Nahti, Yapi. Hey, Yotkala. Ho, wana lechus e preki e, suta noji na le woyuk chankile e waganate. Matuenish ni ash, ki wahe mitro ki ogna wola kota ki lechus e imichakap. No ospema kyam. Na hena ata le wach pekile amata egna kapi. Taka ogna hechus e imichake. Hoetaha, wakach nikele iwacho eha, wanat hokata ke iblaben na ozula, Lakota, wagla kele suta ewagnat. Honey hechus oyateki, wakanjon kit copy, letchus e wichoik eno speed chakyap. The taku cash no kit copy, hechus, nichik alabena hechus e inichag ho, wana, nichach nikop to hoetaha, taku cash was look eno happy. The titake, his wakanja, his Hakoja Pakuha, Hena we chat, Hena Tokata Yagle up the Tony who Hena Hechus, Suka Woglakabo keeps the Hena Mission Nako no one black. So Leon pet to Hobatran. What I said in my language, brother, that's very beautiful and it makes me smile. Because my language does not have any cursing. It has no sense of being angry at one another. Okay? It's so pure and rich that it puts a smile on your face after you're done. Because when you transmogrify the English language into a language that never was written, you will see the purity. And so what I said when the colonists first arrived here, it was people of those eastern shorelines that saw a different man. But they saw how pitiful this man was. They saw that, man, he was malnutrition, and he must have been lost at sea because according to his history books, that's what he was. Remember, our people knew exactly what this guy was about. He was about destruction, murder, rape, controlling, and thievery. This is what that man had brought to our country. But yet, because we had so much compassion and love for ourselves, we fed that man. We taught him how to live off the land. We gave him, our fruits and vegetables. And now look what he did. And so this man will never go back into his history and see what he did and be thankful that it took indigenous people to save him from self-destruction. Really think about that, white man, if you're listening tonight. Really think about what we did for you. And you owe a lot of people for what you have done. But not once can you people admit to your wrong and accept the truth, because the truth is what's, man, you're being taught to you tonight on this, real strong radio show. Back to you, little brother.
That was very powerful, Canupa. I love listening to it. I want to round this up. We're at the top of the hour just about, and I want to read something from I Love Ancestry. A lady named Sonia Braxton wrote this, and it's about, we're talking about genocide. We're going to talk about a different kind of genocide for a minute, and it's called paper genocide. When the Europeans came to our land, they found physical variety among our people. And in comparing region by region, no two tribes were the same in culture, belief, or even phenotype. The European caste system has caused confusion and bias, pitting native against native. To believe that within our whole hemisphere there was no variety among our people is to believe the lie that the European has been brainwashing our people with for the last 522 years. We have dark-skinned Native American Indians as well as light-skinned Indians. We have natives with dark eyes, light eyes, dark hair and light hair, straight hair and curly hair. Dark does not always mean black, and light does not always mean white. No one tells the dark-skinned, curly-haired Aboriginal people in Australia that they are African just because they have dark skin. No more than anyone can tell a fair-skinned Chinese that they are Asian because they have to be light-skinned with natural curly hair. This is an account of European explorer Giovanni de Verrazzano when he came into contact with North Carolina Indians in 1524, approximately 32 years after Columbus. Written record of the voyage of 1524, Giovanni de Verrazzano, as recorded in a letter to Francis I, King of France, July 8, 1524. They are dark in color, not unlike the Ethiopians with thick black hair, not very long, tied back behind the head like a small tail. As for the physique of these men, they are well proportioned, of medium height, a little taller than we are. They have broad chests, strong arms and legs, and our other parts of their body are well composed. There is nothing else except that they tend to be rather broad in the face, but not all. For we saw many with angular faces. They have big black eyes and an attentive and open look. Suggested is a variety in skin color, bone structure, hair length, and hair textures within our original people of our land and region in the Western Hemisphere, Turtle Island. We have a variety in looks. This is just one of them. We are not a stereotype. We are who we are, native. Don't try to make us or mold us into anything else. That was from I Love Ancestry, written by Sonia Braxton. She wrote a lot of information on paper genocide and on the East Coast, how they destroyed natives, and the Europeans married into the tribes to take these tribes over for the purpose of stealing land. But I just wanted to tie that in. There's so many different types of genocide. We were just talking about the language, and I think that's another form of genocide with the boarding schools. You know, our elders have all the wisdom. When an elder dies, it's like a library being burned down. So they kill the elders, they take out our warriors, they steal our children, and they try to re-educate them and teach them English and take away our native tongue. Another genocide. in this. Ani iti agahi tolo iti mokas kache hutamo la yati ska achami. Akapiti bishak manito puni yamati tasakai. We are warriors. We're not going anywhere. This is the Truth Seeker, a.k.a. Talking Stick Radio. I got my friend Canupa. You heard him speaking with passion, with his heart, and I hope all the listening audience get this. I hope you understand this message that's coming through this system to your ear, to your eardrum. We're coming back again with another interview, because I know you want it, and I know he has more information to give, and I have more questions to ask. Canupa, you have anything you want to close out with?
Yes, I want people to remember that, the history of the Lakota Nation has always been a matriarchal system, and that's a nation status. And the United States government has to recognize that the Lakota never, ever gave up that status. And it's so implicit when they turn around and really violate the laws that they never, ever agreed upon. When you look at the Treaty of 1851 and you look at the Treaty of 1868, you will see that there is no women on there. And that tells us that our nation status as a matriarchal system still is in place. And with that, brother, I thank you for allowing us to come back on, and I look forward for another show in the next couple of days, because I really need to start keeping, the whole system alive about, what this Eurocentric man is doing to our people and many others of color by continuing to share our international independent status that we never relinquish at the discretions of our mothers. And this show is dedicated to my late mother, Yvonne Jane Martin, who passed away on, February 18th of this year. And Mom, I know you're out there in the spirit world looking down on your son. I remember you today because your day comes up every Thursday, and now I can't be there, but I know you're in spirit with me, and I dedicate this to you. Okay, Mom, I love you, and someday, hey, I'll see you again in the happy hunting grounds. Okay.